It can be fascinating to compare how different cultures around the world treat sensitivity. Let's start with the Western individualist cultures, like the United States, United Kingdom, Australia. For these cultures, it's generally thought that sensitivity is a weakness or a liability. Emotional expression is often minimized in favor of rationality or independence or productivity. Having a thick skin or grit or resilience, these are valued traits in this culture, and highly sensitive people are often told to toughen up or to stop overthinking. The impact this has on HSPs is that many of us internalize shame early for needing more rest, needing more solitude, or time for emotional processing. Sensitivity is pathologized, and it's seen as a flaw that we need to fix. And so this gets burned into our brains early, and we start thinking, okay, I need to do something, I need to fix this. And it can even continue in your normal, like your adult life, where you're trying to do a lot of self-help to try to fix yourself. I'm just too sensitive. And this is so interesting to see that it can be a result of the culture that you're living in. Also, HSPs learn early to mask their emotions in this culture, to focus on overachieving and to compensate for being too soft. So we are good at achieving. We are good at long-term goals and doing things really well. And so we can end up leaning into that and masking the emotional side or not taking the time to rest and ending up burning out. Were you ever labeled as too sensitive in a corporate setting or in a school environment where speed and output were prioritized over emotional nuance? Let's look next at Asian cultures, for example, Japan, Korea, China. These cultures have a more complex relationship with sensitivity. Sensitivity is often culturally aligned and with this kind of idea of humility and social awareness and harmony. And it's not seen as a bad thing. But the problem is, in this culture, emotional containment is expected, not expression. So sensitivity is respected when it leads to conformity and peace, but it's discouraged when it disrupts group cohesion. And the impact on HSPs in these cultures is that they may feel more understood intellectually, but still struggle to express their emotional needs openly. Emotional restraint can actually be admired in these cultures, and it can lead to an internal pressure to suppress these emotions inside of us as HSPs. And it can still end up causing this feeling of shame or exhaustion. Also, in this culture, sensory sensitivity may not be acknowledged. The focus remains on emotional sensitivity to others. And that's different than the sensory and processing sensitivity that is a defining character of being an HSP. So there's an interesting tension. Sensitivity is honored, but only when it helps the group, and not always when it's self-directed or if it becomes divergent in any way. Next, let's look at Latin American and Middle Eastern cultures like Mexico, Egypt, Turkey, these kinds of cultures. The general view of sensitivity here is that emotional expression is okay. It's socially accepted. It's okay to cry. It's okay to shout. It's okay to feel strongly. However, gender roles often dictate how sensitivity is received. For example, sensitivity in men may be shamed. Also, family expectations and communal values can create pressure to sacrifice self-needs for group or family unity. So what happens is if you're an HSP in one of these cultures, you may feel validated for your expressiveness, but still internalize guilt around asserting boundaries. And that's because loyalty and duty may be more important. Like they're seen to override personal needs. And that makes it hard for HSPs to claim space or time for solitude or taking care of themselves without feeling selfish. So sensitivity in this kind of culture may be welcome emotionally, but not practically. You can cry, but don't expect alone time. Then if we look at Indigenous cultures and wisdom traditions like First Nations, these kinds of areas, we see that sensitivity is often seen as a gift. It's associated with spiritual insight, connection to nature, intuitive wisdom, and emotional depth is linked to healing and storytelling, and these are good things in this kind of culture. And sensory attunement may be a part of rituals and community roles, and it's usually honored. So the impact of HSPs in this kind of culture is they may thrive in these kinds of settings, feeling more seen, more honored, and these perspectives support the idea that sensitivity is purposeful and it's not a defect. The problem is these kinds of cultural frameworks are often sidelined in modern societies, and that makes it hard for HSPs to access this kind of view in daily life. The surprising ways that cultural norms shape your self-talk, behavior, beliefs about being too sensitive. Early messages that we get often lead to a feeling of shame. You're too sensitive. You need to toughen up. Don't take it so personally. Why are you crying again? These, when they come again and again, can cause us to feel shame. And even though these may be well-meaning by teachers and parents that are trying to help us fit into a society, they make us think that something's wrong with us. And so this happens early, and it can become a part of our identity until we question these ideas. I start to think I should be over this, or I'm too emotional, or I should handle this better. I should be able to do more than this. Also, what happens is that HSPs, because of this social pressure and this bit of shame, can end up trying to overextend themselves, to try to hide their needs or to downplay the overwhelm, to avoid feeling judged or being thought of as dramatic or incapable. Another thing is that many HSPs don't know that they are HSPs. They just think they're failing at being like everyone else. And so the culture sets the standard, and they assume that they're broken if they don't meet that standard. It even shows up in language, where different languages will celebrate emotional awareness, or different languages will mock it. Some will focus on being very practical and getting it done quickly, saying it quickly, and some will value getting into the nuance. And so that also can be a effect. And finally, let's look at how to move beyond the stereotypes, how to start finding your own anchor instead of trying to refer only to the society in which you live. The first thing I think that helps is education. If you learn about the highly sensitive person trait, this can be a really big turning point in how you see yourself and how you understand your role in society, which is actually really important. Highly sensitive people, though they only form 15 to 20% of a given population, are the ones that see the nuance, that process deeply, see the danger ahead of time, are able to hold a group together. They have amazing gifts, and that's why they have continued to, the societies have continued to have this trait as a natural part of evolution. So understanding this can help reduce the shame. I have a different identity. I have a different role, and society may not always appreciate it, may not always understand it, but I have to honor myself, and that's how I serve society. And then finally, I think what's super helpful when untangling shame of any kind is inner work. Inner work allows you to identify what you're actually believing. What are the thoughts that are running in your head? What are the beliefs that you've picked up from other people? And start to question those. When you question your beliefs, you start to shift your identity. You start to see things from a more objective point of view. And when you do this, you may start to go beyond the limitations of your society. You may find ways of working within the constraints of society while at the same time honoring your sensitivity. When you question beliefs like, they won't accept me if I'm sensitive, you may find that it's not even true. They may accept your sensitivity. It's just that you may have to find how to do that. You may have to own it more. And so as you question your thoughts, you may find that your need for approval is less, while at the same time, you may get more recognition and understanding from the world around you, even when that culture is limited.